On January 15, 2025, China announced a substantial investment of $1.5 billion in Panama, marking a strategic effort to bolster economic ties and enhance its geopolitical presence in Latin America. This investment arrives amid escalating tensions between the United States and China, particularly concerning control over the Panama Canal, a critical maritime passage that significantly influences regional stability. Historical context. China's interest in Panama has grown since 2017, when Panama severed diplomatic ties with Taiwan and recognized Beijing. Following this diplomatic shift, Panama became the first Latin American nation to join China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) in 2018. The BRI is an ambitious global development strategy aimed at enhancing infrastructure and trade connectivity across various regions. Major projects proposed during this phase included a high-speed rail line, a new subway system in Panama City, and a modern container port. In a notable achievement, a Chinese state-owned company secured a significant $1.4 billion contract to construct a fourth bridge over the Panama Canal. Initial successes and setbacks. Despite initial successes, China faced hurdles in its efforts to solidify its influence in Panama. Following President Juan Carlos Varela's administration, which had been relatively open to Chinese investments, his successor, President Laurentino Cortizo, encountered domestic objections and external pressures, particularly from the U.S. The Panamanian government suspended the high-speed railway project and ultimately revoked Landbridge's rights to the container port project due to contractual violations, including insufficient local investment in labor. Recent developments. As of early 2025, the political landscape in Panama shifted once again with the inauguration of President José Raúl Mulino. Shortly after taking office, Mulino announced plans to terminate a key development agreement with China that included a memorandum of understanding related to the BRI. This decision followed a visit from U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who underscored the importance of strengthening U.S.-Panama relations and countering Chinese influence in the region. In Mulino's statement, he emphasized that Panama's sovereignty over the Panama Canal would remain unchanged and expressed a desire to foster closer ties with the United States. This pivot reflects the growing apprehension within the Panamanian government regarding China's expanding role in the region, particularly in light of U.S. concerns about national security. U.S. response. The U.S. government's response to China's activities in Panama has been increasingly vocal. President Donald Trump has articulated fears regarding China's influence over the Panama Canal, highlighting its strategic importance to U.S. maritime traffic. Approximately 72% of vessels traversing the canal are connected to U.S. ports, making the canal a vital asset for American trade and security. In light of these concerns, the Trump administration has even proposed legislation aimed at repurchasing the canal, which had been completed by the U.S. and handed over to Panama in 1977. Strategic implications. The implications of China's investment in Panama extend beyond economic interests to encompass broader geopolitical dynamics. Analysts note the strategic significance of the Panama Canal and U.S. China rivalry, as Chinese control over the canal could pose a potential threat to U.S. national security. The canal is not only a critical trade route but also a key transit point for U.S. military vessels, thereby amplifying the stakes involved in the region. Common themes across sources. Reports from various sources underscored several common themes regarding China's investments in Panama. 1. Strategic importance. The Panama Canal's role in the U.S.-China rivalry is pivotal, with both nations vying for influence over this crucial maritime route. 2. Fluctuating relations. The relationship between Panama and China has been marked by both ambitious infrastructure projects and growing skepticism from Panamanian authorities, reflecting a complex interplay of economic interests and national sovereignty. 3. U.S. countermeasures. The U.S. has intensified its efforts to counter China's influence in Panama, emphasizing the need for stronger bilateral relations and investments. Differences in perspectives. While some outlets such as the New York Times emphasize China's long-term ambitions and initial successes in Panama, others, including reports from Yahoo and the Center for Strategic and International Studies (SIS), focused more on the immediate political ramifications of the U.S. response and Panama's strategic pivot away from China. The latter sources highlighted U.S. officials' concerns regarding national security and economic implications, reflecting a sense of urgency in countering Chinese influence. Conclusion. In summary, China's $1.5 billion investment in Panama represents a complex interplay of economic strategies, geopolitical aspirations, and local governance dynamics. As Panama navigates its international relationships in the face of rising tensions between the U.S. and China, the potential for renewed cooperation or further discord remains. The situation in Panama serves as a microcosm of the broader contest for influence in Latin America, with significant implications for regional stability and international relations in the years to come. The investment of $1.5 billion by China in Panama in January 2025 is a significant development in the geopolitical landscape of Latin America, showcasing a complex interplay of economic ambitions and regional dynamics. Here are some counterintuitive insights extracted from the content. 1. China's influence versus local governance. While China is perceived as an expanding power in Panama through significant investments and projects, local governance challenges and public skepticism have hindered progress. The expectation that China would seamlessly increase its influence overlooks the reality of how local political contexts can impede foreign investment. Panama's recent decision to end a key development deal with China following U.S. diplomatic pressure illustrates that local governance can resist external influences even from a superpower. 2. U.S. reaction and strategic miscalculations. The U.S. government's fear regarding China's control over the Panama Canal reflects a deeper strategic miscalculation. While the U.S. has historically viewed Latin America as its sphere of influence, the notion that aggressive posturing, such as proposals to repurchase the canal, will effectively counter China's presence may backfire. Instead, it could push Panama closer to China, as local leaders may perceive U.S. actions as overreach rather than support. 3. Contradictory interests in infrastructure development. The ambitious infrastructure projects proposed by China, such as a high-speed rail line and a new subway, are often celebrated as harbingers of progress. However, the local setbacks and suspensions, such as the suspension of the railway project by President Cortizo and the revocation of land bridges rights to the container port, reveal a contradiction. The expectation that foreign investment will lead to immediate benefits clashes with the reality of local political and economic dynamics that can stymie such initiatives. 4. The role of soft power. China's soft power strategy, which includes cultural exchanges and humanitarian aid, is often viewed as a means to gain influence. However, the perception of these efforts can vary widely. While they may strengthen ties with some factions within Panama, they can also foster skepticism among others who view them as attempts to exert control. The narrative that China is merely a benign partner contrasts with the view of it as a potential threat, complicating the local response to Chinese investments. 5. Underestimating local sovereignty. The assertion by Panama's President José Raúl Mulino that the country's sovereignty over the Panama Canal will remain unchanged challenges the narrative of a Chinese takeover. This highlights a counterintuitive reality. Local leaders are not merely pawns in the U.S. China rivalry but are actively negotiating their own terms. The idea that a small nation like Panama would cede control entirely to a foreign power overlooks the agency of its leadership and the importance of national sovereignty in international relations. 6. Economic dependency versus autonomy. The economic narrative often frames countries like Panama as being at the mercy of larger economies such as the U.S. or China. However, the decision to seek increased U.S. investments while ending the Belt and Road Initiative suggests a nuanced approach to economic dependency. Panama is navigating a path toward economic diversification, demonstrating agency rather than simply succumbing to the pressures of larger powers. 7. Misinterpretation of geopolitical alignment. The view that Panama's actions represent a straightforward alignment with the U.S. against China fails to account for the complex motivations behind local policy decisions. Panama's leadership may prioritize national interests and economic benefits over ideological alignment, indicating that geopolitical maneuvering is often more about pragmatism than allegiance. These counterintuitive insights emphasize that the geopolitical landscape in Latin America, particularly concerning Panama and China's investment, is characterized by a mixture of local agency, historical context, and the unpredictable nature of international relations. In the context of China's $1.5 billion investment in Panama, several crucial aspects may be overlooked by the general public, particularly regarding the broader implications of this investment on geopolitical dynamics, economic relations, and local governance in Panama. Below, I highlight these key points and their significance. 1. Historical diplomatic shifts. The shift in Panama's diplomatic ties from Taiwan to China in 2017 is a pivotal moment that set the stage for China's increased interest in the region. This was not merely a change in diplomatic recognition but a strategic pivot that opened the doors for China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) in Panama. The historical context of this shift is significant because it illustrates the long-standing geopolitical battles in Latin America, where China seeks to expand its influence as the U.S. faces challenges in maintaining its traditional dominance. Understanding this background is crucial as it informs the motivations behind Panama's current governmental decisions and its balancing act between U.S. and Chinese interests. 2. The role of local governance. The dynamic between local governance in Panama and foreign investment is often underestimated. The fact that Panama's previous President Laurentino Cortizo suspended major Chinese projects due to local concerns and U.S. pressure indicates that local politics play a significant role in international investments. The recent decision by President José Raúl Mulino to end a key development deal with China after a visit from U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio underscores how domestic leadership can pivot in response to external pressures. This highlights the importance of local governance in shaping international relations and the fragility of foreign investment agreements, which can be easily undermined by changes in political leadership or public sentiment. 3. U.S. China rivalry in Latin America. The investment and subsequent developments reveal a broader trend of U.S. China rivalry extending into Latin America, an area traditionally viewed as the U.S.'s sphere of influence. The U.S. government's reaction to China's growing role in Panama, including discussions of repurchasing the Panama Canal, reflects a heightened sense of urgency regarding national security. This rivalry is significant because it may lead to a reshaping of alliances in the region, with countries like Panama caught in the middle. The implications of this rivalry extend beyond economic interests to include military and strategic dimensions, making it a crucial element for analysts to monitor. 4. Economic dependencies and sovereignty issues. Panama's engagement with China raises crucial questions about economic dependency and sovereignty. While the promised investments from China could spur economic development, they also come with potential strings attached, possibly compromising Panama's autonomy in decision-making. The recent pledge by President Mulino to prioritize U.S. investments post-Rubio's visit indicates a desire to maintain sovereignty over the canal and resist any perceived encroachment by China. This is significant as it reflects a broader trend where countries must navigate the complex waters of international investment while trying to safeguard their national interests and sovereignty. 5. Infrastructure development as a soft power strategy. China's focus on infrastructure development in Panama, such as the proposed high-speed rail line and container port, is part of a broader strategy to utilize soft power to foster goodwill and dependency. While these projects promise to boost Panama's economy, the underlying intention is often to enhance China's geopolitical clout in the region. This aspect is frequently overlooked as discussions tend to focus solely on the economic benefits without considering the long-term geopolitical implications of such investments. By establishing economic ties through infrastructure, China is effectively creating a network of influence that could sway Panama's foreign policy decisions in its favor. 6. Potential for renewed cooperation or increased tension. The fluidity of Panama's relations with both China and the U.S. presents a dual potential for either renewed cooperation or increased tension. As Panama navigates its international relationships, the outcomes of these interactions could significantly influence regional stability. The recent developments indicate that while there is a move towards U.S. alignment, the potential for future cooperation with China remains. This is critical for observers to understand, as it suggests that the geopolitical landscape in Latin America is still evolving and that countries may shift allegiances based on changing political, economic, and social factors. Conclusion. The significance of China's $1.5 billion investment in Panama extends far beyond the immediate economic implications. It is intertwined with historical diplomatic shifts, local governance dynamics, U.S. China rivalry, issues of sovereignty, and the strategic use of soft power. These elements are crucial for understanding the complexities of international relations in Latin America and the potential for both cooperation and conflict as nations navigate their interests in an increasingly multipolar world. By recognizing these nuances, stakeholders can better anticipate future developments and their potential impacts on regional and global stability. 1. Geopolitical significance of the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal is a critical maritime route that facilitates a significant portion of U.S. trade. Approximately 72% of vessels using the canal are linked to U.S. ports, making its control a matter of national security. China's increasing influence in Panama, particularly through investments in infrastructure projects, raises concerns about potential control over this vital waterway. The U.S. response, including proposals for repurchasing the canal, reflects the strategic importance of maintaining influence over this critical transit point. 2. Impact of leadership changes in Panama. The shift in leadership from President Juan Carlos Varela to José Raúl Mulino has had a profound impact on Panama's foreign policy direction, particularly regarding relations with China. Mulino's recent decision to end a key development deal with China and explore closer ties with the U.S. signifies a potential pivot away from Chinese influence. This dynamic illustrates the volatility of international relations in the region, highlighting how changes in government can significantly alter foreign investment and diplomatic relationships. 3. China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) and local resistance. China's investment strategy in Panama, particularly through the Belt and Road Initiative, has faced both enthusiasm and resistance. While China has proposed ambitious infrastructure projects, local concerns about sovereignty, economic dependency, and the actual benefits of these projects have led to setbacks, such as the suspension of the railway project and the revocation of contracts. This reflects the complexities of foreign investment, where geopolitical ambitions must align with local governance and public sentiment. 4. U.S. China rivalry in Latin America. The unfolding situation in Panama is emblematic of the broader geopolitical rivalry between the U.S. and China in Latin America. As China seeks to expand its influence through economic investments, the U.S. is increasingly concerned about losing ground in what it historically views as its sphere of influence. The U.S. government's efforts to counter China's presence, including high-level diplomatic visits and proposals to strengthen bilateral ties with Panama, highlight the competitive landscape in which both powers vie for influence in the region. 1. The Panama Canal and U.S. control. 1903 to 1999. The construction of the Panama Canal was a monumental engineering feat that significantly altered global trade routes. Completed in 1914, the U.S. controlled the canal zone until December 31, 1999, when control was handed over to Panama under the Torrijos-Carter treaties. The U.S. had significant geopolitical interests in maintaining control over the canal, as it served as a critical shortcut for maritime traffic between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The transition of control was marked by tensions surrounding sovereignty and U.S. influence in Latin America, culminating in a complex relationship between the U.S. and Panama that continues to this day. 2. The Suez Crisis 1956. The Suez Crisis was a diplomatic and military confrontation involving Egypt, Israel, France, and the United Kingdom that emerged after Egypt nationalized the Suez Canal in July 1956. The canal had been controlled by British and French interests prior to the nationalization, and its closure to Israeli shipping was perceived as a significant threat to Western interests in the region. The subsequent military intervention by Israel, followed by Britain and France, led to international condemnation and pressure from the United States and the Soviet Union, ultimately resulting in the withdrawal of foreign troops and the establishment of United Nations peacekeeping forces. The crisis underscored the strategic importance of the canal and highlighted the declining influence of European powers in favor of rising superpowers during the Cold War. 3. China's investments in Sri Lanka 2010s. China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) led to significant investments in Sri Lanka, most notably the Hambantota Port Project, which began in 2008. The Sri Lankan government took on substantial debt to finance the port, but the project faced operational challenges and was unable to generate expected revenue. In 2017, Sri Lanka handed over a 70% stake in the port to a Chinese state-owned company for 99 years as part of a debt restructuring agreement. This move raised concerns among critics about debt trap diplomacy, where countries become overly dependent on Chinese investments, leading to potential loss of sovereignty. The situation reflected broader geopolitical dynamics in South Asia as the U.S. and India expressed concern over China's expanding influence in the region, similar to the U.S. response to China's investments in Panama. China's $1.5 billion investment in Panama marks a pivotal moment in the dynamics of international relations and economic strategies in Latin America. As the geopolitical landscape evolves, several predictions can be made regarding the future implications of this investment and the ongoing U.S. China rivalry. 1. Increased geopolitical tensions. The investment is likely to exacerbate tensions between the U.S. and China, particularly in the context of the Panama Canal's strategic importance. With approximately 72% of vessels using the canal linked to U.S. ports, any perceived increase in Chinese influence could prompt further U.S. intervention both diplomatically and economically. The U.S. might intensify efforts to counteract China's presence, possibly leading to a new phase of Cold War-like competition in the region. 2. Potential for a new Cold War in Latin America. As China seeks to expand its influence through investments in infrastructure and trade agreements, the U.S. may respond with its own initiatives aimed at reasserting its dominance in Latin America. This could manifest through increased military cooperation, economic assistance, and initiatives designed to strengthen ties with other countries in the region that might feel threatened by Chinese expansion. 3. Shifts in Panamanian politics. Panama's political landscape may undergo significant changes as it navigates the pressures from both China and the U.S. The recent decision by President José Raúl Mulino to end the development deal with China suggests a potential pivot toward the U.S. However, this shift might not be stable. Future administrations could oscillate between pro-Chinese and pro-American policies based on domestic political considerations, economic needs, and public sentiment towards foreign influence. 4. Infrastructure development and economic growth. If managed effectively, the Chinese investment could lead to substantial infrastructure development in Panama, contributing to economic growth and modernization. Projects like the fourth bridge over the Panama Canal and potential rail lines could enhance connectivity and trade efficiency. However, these developments will likely depend on the Panamanian government's ability to navigate local concerns and maintain a balanced relationship with both superpowers. 5. Increased scrutiny of Chinese investments. As China's presence expands in Central America, scrutiny regarding the terms and implications of its investments will heighten. There may be calls for greater transparency and accountability from both the Panamanian government and Chinese firms to ensure that local interests are protected. Local opposition to Chinese projects could lead to significant pushback, affecting the viability and scope of future investments. 6. Regional economic integration. China's investment in Panama could serve as a catalyst for broader economic integration in Central America. Other countries in the region may look to replicate Panama's model of engagement with China, potentially leading to a network of Chinese-backed infrastructure projects that could alter trade routes and economic relationships across Central America. This could enhance China's influence in the region but also provoke a stronger U.S. response. 7. Impact on global supply chains. The Panama Canal is a critical juncture for global trade. Any changes in its control or management, particularly with growing Chinese influence, could disrupt supply chains. Companies that rely heavily on the canal may need to reassess their logistics and strategies, which could lead to broader shifts in global trade patterns. 8. U.S. legislative actions. The introduction of the Panama Canal Repurchase Act highlights a growing sentiment in U.S. politics regarding the need to reclaim control over strategic assets. Should this legislation gain traction, it could set a precedent for similar actions in other regions where U.S. influence is perceived to be declining. This could lead to a trend of aggressive U.S. foreign policy aimed at reclaiming influence in key strategic locations globally. 9. Strengthen Latin American alliances with China. Countries in Latin America may increasingly view China as an alternative to U.S. hegemony, leading to strengthened alliances with Beijing. This could manifest in various forms, including trade agreements, investment partnerships, and political alliances that challenge traditional U.S. influence in the region. 10. Cultural and social implications. China's investments often come with cultural outreach efforts such as establishing educational institutions and promoting cultural exchanges. The success of these initiatives could lead to a growing acceptance of Chinese influence in Panama and potentially across Latin America, reshaping public perceptions and fostering a new generation that views China as a partner rather than a rival. Conclusion. The future of China's investment in Panama and its broader implications for U.S.-China relations and regional dynamics remains uncertain. The interplay of local governance, international pressure, and economic aspirations will shape the trajectory of these developments. As both superpowers vie for influence, the outcome will likely redefine the geopolitical landscape of Latin America for years to come.